The Horn of Africa juts into the Indian Ocean, a crossroads of ancient kingdoms, diverse peoples, and enduring conflict. For centuries, Ethiopia and Somalia have shared a long, often troubled history. Ethiopia, with its highlands and deep Christian roots, stood as a proud, unconquered empire. Somalia, a nation of poets and pastoralists, united by language and Islam, stretched along the arid coast. Their rivalry was about more than land. It was about identity and faith, with memories of old wars shaping deep mistrust. By the 1970s, this ancient tension centered on the Ogaden, a vast arid region both claimed as their own. To Ethiopia, it was an eastern province. To Somalis, it was western Somalia, unjustly handed to Ethiopia by colonial powers. The Ogaden became a symbol of national pride and grievance, a flashpoint waiting for a spark. The Cold War made the region a chessboard for the US and Soviet Union, each arming local allies. The coming war would not just be a local fight, it would become a dramatic proxy conflict, reshaping the Horn of Africa. The scars of this rivalry are still visible today. The roots of the Ogaden War trace back to the scramble for Africa when European powers divided the Somali people into 5 territories: British Somaliland, Italian Somaliland, French Djibouti, Kenya's north, and the Ogaden were split by colonial lines. When British and Italian Somaliland united in 1960, the Somali Republic was born, its flag bearing a 5-pointed star, each point representing a lost Somali land. The dream of Greater Somalia, Somaliland, became the nation's mission to unite all Somali-inhabited territories. This vision was written into the constitution and taught in schools, fueling a powerful sense of unfinished destiny. The Ogaden, the largest lost territory, was home to millions of ethnic Somalis who resisted Ethiopian rule. Mogadishu supported these resistance movements, providing weapons and sanctuary. The dream was not just symbolic, it was an active political project, with the Ogaden as its main target. For many Somalis, the nation felt incomplete as long as their kin lived under foreign rule. The 5-pointed star was a constant reminder of this mission. The Somali government's support for Ogaden rebels set it on a collision course with Ethiopia. The Ogaden was more than land, it was the heart of Somali national identity. This made compromise impossible and war inevitable. The dream of Greater Somalia would soon be tested on the battlefield. The stage was set for conflict. The mid-1970s brought upheaval to both Ethiopia and Somalia. Ethiopia's monarchy fell in 1974, replaced by the Marxist Derg, led by Colonel Mengistu Haile Mariam. The Red Terror campaign and internal rebellions left Ethiopia divided and its army weakened. Meanwhile, Somalia, under Siad Barre, grew stronger, forging close ties with the Soviet Union. With Soviet support, Somalia built a powerful army equipped with modern tanks and jets. By 1977, Barre saw Ethiopia's chaos as a chance to seize the Ogaden and fulfill the dream of Greater Somalia. The Western Somali Liberation Front, backed by Somalia, controlled much of the Ogaden countryside. Somali soldiers, disguised as guerrillas, joined the fight, giving Somalia a pretext for invasion. Barre believed the Soviets would not intervene against him, despite also supporting Ethiopia. It was a massive gamble. The pieces were in place for a major war. The countdown to invasion had begun. In July 1977, Somalia launched a massive invasion of the Ogaden. Tens of thousands of Somali troops, backed by tanks and jets, swept across the border in a lightning assault. Ethiopian forces, outnumbered and surprised, fell back as town after town fell to the Somali advance. Gode and Kabri Dehar were quickly captured, and the local Somali population welcomed the invaders as liberators. By September, Somalia controlled over 90% of the Ogaden, standing at the gates of Harar and Dire Dawa. Dire Dawa was vital, a commercial hub and Ethiopia's link to the outside world. Capturing it would cripple Ethiopia's economy and supply lines. Somali euphoria soared. The dream of Greater Somalia seemed within reach. Siad Barre was hailed as a hero. But the rapid advance stretched Somali supply lines thin. As they prepared for the final push, a dramatic shift was unfolding internationally. The Somali blitzkrieg success was about to be tested. The fate of the war hung in the balance. A new phase was about to begin. The battle for Dir Dawa in August 1977 was a turning point. Somali forces stormed the city, breaking through defenses and reaching the airfield. For a moment, Ethiopia's main supply lifeline seemed lost. But Ethiopian defenders, army, militia, and air force, fought back fiercely. Ethiopian pilots, flying American F-5 jets, struck Somali tank columns, shifting the momentum. The Somalis failed to secure the airfield, allowing Ethiopia to fly in reinforcements. The assault stalled, Somali forces were pushed back. It was their first major setback, revealing Ethiopia's resilience. The failed attack bought Ethiopia precious time to regroup and seek new allies. The Somali advance had been halted. The Ogaden War forced the Soviet Union to choose between its two allies. Moscow had armed both Somalia and Ethiopia, but Ethiopia's size and strategic value tipped the scales. When Somalia refused Soviet mediation, the Kremlin cut off all aid to Siad Barre and backed Ethiopia. Barre expelled Soviet advisors and turned to the US, but Washington offered only limited support. Somalia was suddenly isolated, lacking a superpower patron. Meanwhile, the Soviets launched a massive airlift, sending billions in weapons and thousands of advisors to Ethiopia. The balance of power shifted overnight. Alongside Soviet arms came Cuban troops, thousands of them. The Cold War had redrawn its lines in the Horn of Africa. The stage was set for a decisive counterattack. With Soviet weapons and Cuban troops, Ethiopia prepared a massive counter-offensive. The key target, Jijiga, the Somali army's main base. Somali forces, dug in and confident, fortified the mountain passes. Soviet and Cuban commanders devised a surprise flanking maneuver, bypassing the main defenses through rough terrain. In March 1978, Cuban-led forces struck from behind, cutting Somali supply lines. Simultaneously, Ethiopian troops attacked through the Marda Pass. Surrounded and pounded by artillery and airstrikes, Somali defenses collapsed. The retreat turned chaotic. Somali troops abandoned tanks and equipment. The fall of Jijiga shattered Somalia's hopes of victory. The Ogaden dream was lost on the battlefield. The war's outcome was now clear. After Jijiga, the Somali army was in full retreat, pursued by Ethiopian and Cuban forces. On March 9, 1978, Siad Barre announced a withdrawal, but it was a clear defeat. Somalia lost a third of its army and most of its modern equipment. The dream of Greater Somalia was in ruins, replaced by national shame and disillusionment. Hundreds of thousands of ethnic Somalis fled the Ogaden, creating a massive refugee crisis in Somalia. The country's economy and social fabric buckled under the strain. International aid was overwhelmed by the sheer scale of the disaster. Siad Barre's authority crumbled. A failed coup soon followed. To cling to power, he relied on his own clan, fracturing national unity. This sowed the seeds for Somalia's brutal civil war a decade later. The war's consequences would haunt the region for years. The cost was far greater than lost territory. Somalia was left broken and vulnerable. The Ogaden War was a defining moment for the Horn of Africa. For Somalia, it was a disaster. The dream of unity died, and the state soon collapsed into civil war. For Ethiopia, victory brought only temporary stability. Soviet support would later vanish, and Mengistu's regime would fall. Both nations became pawns in the Cold War, armed and abandoned by superpowers. The war showed that alliances are driven by interests, not loyalty. The scars remain. The Ogaden is still tense, and the dream of Greater Somalia has faded. The conflict stands as a warning about the dangers of nationalist dreams and foreign intervention. Historical grievances and modern weapons proved a deadly mix. The war's consequences echo through generations. The Horn of Africa still lives in its shadow.